Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, the 𝐷𝐷𝐷𝐴 people, on which we're holding this event, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's absolutely fantastic that you are here, all coming together from different areas of New South Wales and with different visions about what bowls should be and finding solutions to the problems that we have in our sport and how we can make it better. I said last night at the awards night that sport can make you a better person, and it's really important that you remember that, because sport makes you a better person because of the input that other people have to making you that really good person. And you are the people that do that. In the room, we've got paid people who are paid to work for our sport, but we've mostly got volunteers. And like any other sporting organisation, we cannot do without you. And I sincerely thank you, each and every one of you, for all of the work that you put in to our game. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Today is about fulfilling one of our strategies that we will be reviewing again in 2025. And this strategy is about participation and engagement. It's a really key part of bowls because we want to increase membership and we want to revitalise the look of the game. So I hope you learn something and take it back to your clubs and your regions, and I sincerely hope you enjoy the day. I'm going to pass on to our CEO, Tim Rowe, to commence the rest of the day. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dilys, and good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you all today to officially open the second instalment of our member conference. So thanks for being here. As Dilys said, my name's Tim Rowe and I'm CEO here at Bowls New South Wales. I look up on the screen, I've got far less grey hair up there. That was from about 18 months ago, so someone's airbrushed me. But it's wonderful to see so many familiar faces out here in the audience today, and a lot of repeat offenders of people who actually came here last year as well, which is a really good sign and a positive sign for us. A lot of new faces as well. So look forward to crossing paths with new people I meet across the course of today. I firstly just need to start with a little bit of housekeeping for the day. So in terms of the day itself, or I might start with bathrooms probably first and foremost. Out the door here to your right-hand side, the men's bathroom's on this side of the stairwell and the women's is on the other. There are emergency exits if you head down the escalators here and out the front door. If you hear a beep beep that goes off during the course of this conference, please just remain seated. But if we hear the whoop whoop and the please evacuate, then we need to head out. We're going to have 5 sessions running at once at any given time here. So logistically, there's a fair bit going on. So if you've come in a group, we really recommend people, if you can, divide and conquer, so you can then regroup at the end of the day and share your notes with each other. We will be holding sessions in this room. So this room, after the formalities this morning, will be broken into 2. So there'll be 2 sessions here. There'll be 2 other rooms just over the other side of opposite the bar area. And there'll be a session that's on green as well. Some of those sessions, particularly the on-green session, is going to be capped in terms of numbers, just because we know if numbers get too big, we sort of lose a bit of impact. So that on-green session is going to be capped at around 30 people. So if you miss out, that'll be running all day. If you miss out when you try and attempt to get on there, there'll be an opportunity for you to get back on there across the course of the day. Really encourage you all to get involved with our trade show and partner expo, which is happening out in the main foyer as well. We've got some great presenters and great partners that are there across the course of the day. So whenever you get a chance, please pop out there and have a chat with our partners and trade partners. And at the end of the day, most importantly, we'll be giving away a prize pack, a Drake's Pride prize pack, which is pretty exciting. So the last session of the day, we'll take everyone's lanyards and we'll put those into a bowl and we'll pull out a winner to crown the winner for that prize, which is really exciting. So got an action-packed day ahead. So as I said, thank you all for being here today and for the passion, commitment and energy each of you brings to the sport of lawn bowls across New South Wales. Together, we're not just shaping the future of this sport, we're making it more accessible, more inclusive, and more vibrant for communities across the state. Our goal today is to inform, to arm you with the insights and strategies to drive membership growth and boost participation at your clubs. Lawn bowls has always had a unique power. It's a sport that not only builds skill and strategy, but also forms bonds, fosters communities, and bridges generations. And as a sport with such a rich heritage, we have both the opportunity and the responsibility to ensure that this legacy continues to thrive. But as you know, our world, and the sporting world as we know it, is changing rapidly. To keep up and to stay relevant, we need to continue to learn and to adapt. And that's what this conference today is all about. Today's conference is designed to help each of you take actionable insights back to your clubs, to turn your club's vision and the vision of our sport into reality. It's also to connect with other members and other clubs and share your knowledge and learnings. Over the next few hours, you'll hear from leaders and experts, each bringing valuable knowledge and on key aspects of sport in general and lawn bowls in particular, whether it's innovative approaches to membership, marketing, building partnerships or fostering club culture that draws people to come back and come back again. Our mission is to offer you practical tools that you can adapt to the unique needs of your own club and your communities. In advance of these sessions, I wanted to thank all of our amazing guest speakers and presenters today for your time and energy in bringing together what should be a fantastic day. You are very much appreciated by my board, by myself, by my team, and I'm sure at the end of the day, everybody in this room. I encourage you to listen, engage, and think creatively about how you can apply these ideas and learnings within your clubs. Imagine the impact: more members, stronger communities, and the growth of a sport that we all love. Let's work together to make lawn bowls a game that doesn't just endure, but grows stronger with every passing year. I hope that you all have a fantastic day today and you're able to take away what I like to call nuggets of gold. I'm sure there'll be a few of those today. Thank you for being here, for your dedication and the work that you all put in to shape the future of lawn bowls in this state. Let's all make today inspiring, productive, positive, and impactful. And speaking of inspiring and impactful, I have the honour this morning of introducing our first speaker and our keynote speaker for today. He's a man that needs very little introduction, but I'm going to give it a shot. This year's guest speaker is none other than Steve Glasson, OAM, one of the greatest players to grace the greens. Steve's bowling resume as a player and coach is unmatched. In his playing career, Steve amassed a massive 3 World Outdoor Championships medals, 8 Asia Pacific Championships medals, and a record 9 Australian Indoor Championship titles. His equally successful tenure as head coach of the Australian side saw the Jackaroos claim 9 World Championship gold medals and 11 Commonwealth Games medals across a 6-year span. Those who have met Steve will know he's one of the kindest and most genuine you could wish to meet. And we are honoured to have him today as our keynote speaker. Without further delay, could you please put your hands together for Steve Glasson, OAM.
Never believe what you read. Remember that statement? Never believe what you read. Thank you, Tim, for that glowing introduction. Good morning, everybody. How are you? That was bloody awful. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Up and about. That's what we want to see. Very good. How many attended last night? Hands up, please. Okay, your challenge this morning is to behave and stay awake. Well done, because you're probably quite tired. The next question is, who here doesn't love bowls? Good answer. Very good answer, because I was going to boot you from the room if anyone stuck their hand up. So it's a tremendous sport, isn't it? And I've been very privileged over the last few decades, I guess, to be involved in the sport at all manner of levels. And I still thoroughly love it as much as I did the very first day I was introduced to it. This morning, I would just want to talk to you. It's a bit of reminiscing, I guess, about where I've been in the sport, not so much about me, but where the sport was and where it is now, and I guess leading into the future, where we can go, some ideas. I'd really appreciate some questions at any time. Please don't think you're interrupting, and there's no such thing as a silly question at any time. We're all family here, and we've all got that one common goal that we love the sport and we want to see it prosper and grow. So ideas are great, and if we can share them, that's fantastic. I'd like to welcome you all here, as Tim did. Thank you very much for the opportunity, of course, and to Tim, Dilys and Billy, who are directly involved in getting me here today. I'm really grateful, thank you. It's quite nerve-wracking, I don't mind telling you, being in front of so many distinguished people of our sport, whether it's the CEO of Bowls Australia, Matthew, or the volunteers, you know, our unsung heroes, I guess, that are so very, very important to our sport and that do so much work. I was talking to Greg from Lowlands there before. Thanks, mate, for your time, about the programs they're running with juniors and new players, and it's fantastic to see their memberships growing. And this is a small local community club that's really kicking a bit of butt, so to speak, and growing. So good on you, Greg, to you and your team, and I hope you can share your story with a lot of other clubs throughout, you know, today especially. I do need to just ask you to have a good, hard look at yourselves. This is a very serious question. A good, hard look at yourselves. I rocked up here yesterday at 9:30 to do this, and no one was here. I actually came a day early. God knows that I never do that, and I rocked in. I thought, gee, it's pretty quiet. They must know I'm talking. And long story short, I came a day early. So you're not allowed to share that with anyone. That's our little secret, because I'm in a couple of clubs that will find me for that. So please keep that to yourself. But anyway, it was good to do a bit of reconnaissance and come in and check the place out. So I just want to start off, if I may, by just telling you a little story about the uniqueness, which I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted, a little story about our sport. But I went to a little place called Euston, down near out near Mildura just recently. Had a game with them, did some coaching and that sort of thing. But here we've got 12-year-old Tom Lindsay playing his first game as skipper for Euston. He drew against his grandmother Brenda, and they were playing for Redcliffs. On the other ring, Tom's dad Jeff, also playing his first game as skip, had his 11-year-old daughter Georgia as his second. Have a go at that. So you've got sort of four generations or three generations of bowlers all in the one family playing with and against each other. What other sport has that? Can you think of any? I certainly can't. It's quite amazing. So, so just a little story there, just to touch on the uniqueness of our sport. But look, my story from the early days. My father played for Queensland. I played cricket and rugby league, not very well in my young days. But my father played for Queensland, and my parents divorced quite early in life. So the old story is, when your parents divorce, you spend your weekends with your dad, etc., etc. So he was a bowler, and it was always in my blood. So from about knee high, I was introduced to the sport. I used to go and watch Dad play, and I was just mesmerised by the sport. I just loved it. I loved watching the great players play. I was a sponge for information. I could sit there all day watching the sport, and we're talking about some of the great names of the past that many of you might not even recall, but I certainly put my dad, Bob Glasson, up there. He played for Queensland, but, you know, Perellas and Keith Pools and these sort of players that are synonymous with the sport, and watching these gentlemen play and the way they articulated themselves, the etiquette on the green, the tactics that they implemented throughout the games, and it was just amazing. And as a kid, I just tried to soak all that up and use what benefited me, what worked for me, and what didn't, and sort of put that to the side just in case I ever had to call on it. But they were great mentors, and it was a tough era. It was back in the 80s, showing my age a little bit, and it was a tough school, but it was a golden era of bowls, I guess, back then. On the weekends, on a Sunday morning, staying at Dad's, I used to walk 2 blocks up to the local paper shop, because there's no such thing as social media, Facebook, etc., to buy the Sunday Mail in Brisbane. I was in Brisbane those days, and come back, and there'd be 2 and 3 pages in the Sunday Mail sports edition of bowls write-ups from people like, some names synonymous in the sport in those days, Wyn Jarrett, Bob Baxter, these sort of guys that wrote press media, and there are stories about bowls and individuals in bowls and what was happening, and I'd sit there glued as a you know, hardly a teenager, reading these stories. And of course the proudest moments were on occasion when Dad used to get a mention as well, and see my dad, wow, Bob Glasson, written up in the big papers, you know, in the metropolitan papers. So they were really good days. I started at a club called Maruka in Brisbane. Maruka was the 1982 host of the Commonwealth Games in bowls, 4 greens. I met my idol. I was only, I think, 13 or 14 or something, who wasn't allowed to play in those games. He was deemed to be a profession. That was the great David Bryant. I first met him, and David didn't know who I was, and he was doing commentary, and I had probably half an hour with David because my father was the president of Maruka Bowls Club in those days, so I got introduced to David, and he actually gave me half an hour of his time. This is the greatest player that's ever walked on the greens, and spent half an hour with a 12 or 13-year-old kid that meant nothing to him, and gave me some advice. So I was very, very privileged, and what a great honour that was back in those days. But Maruka, 4 greens every Sunday. They had a turkey pairs, and that meant that 4 greens were full. If you didn't get your name down in advance the week before, you would not get a game. It was men's pairs. You would not get a game if you didn't put your name down a week before, and the prizes were a frozen chook or a frozen turkey. And it was full of club members, normal club members, but also there was metropolitan representatives, state representatives. They used to all turn up for this Sunday morning turkey pairs, and I was very lucky. I used to get myself in some good pairs teams, and my nickname finished up being Feathers because we used to win a fair few frozen chooks, which was great. But the thing was that it was just such a great morning, and it was so competitive. But then in the afternoon, they'd have 3.5 greens full of mixed triples. And I think, I don't even have vouchers back then. I don't even know if there was prize money, maybe another frozen chook. But that was the 80s. That was bowls at its peak, and the numbers were through the roof and that sort of thing. But as we know, things have changed. Some for the better, some not so much. And it's a challenge for all, I think, all club sports these days to generate not only participation, but also membership as a whole and as a regular. So the Sunday mornings, they were the papers, they were the golden era. My first tournament victory was at a club called Pine Rivers, which a lot of you would have seen, host BPL and things like that. And I was, I think, about 15 years of age. And my father took me to this event. And it was a state Queensland junior singles back in the day. This is, I'm talking like 1985 or something. So anyway, I won my first game, and Dad was there, and he watched the first game, and he said to me, son, if you're going to win this event like dads do, you're going to have to beat that kid over there in the corner. I'm 15, I don't give a bugger what Dad says, I'm not listening to him, and nor do I really care who this other guy is unless he's a good guy. As it turns out, we both went through undefeated and played each other in the final, and this guy was 𝐂𝐲𝐶𝐞. And we're age of 15, so it was a great story. We finished up growing up together, being great mates, competing with and against one another. But I think the quality of the story is that not only did we meet when we were kids and teenagers and become really good friends, as I say, we competed with and against one another, we toured together for so long, but we became best mates, and we're now godfather of each other's kids. We probably talk 3 or 4 times a week. And that's the critical ingredient, I think, of bowls, that, you can have that competitive side to it, but the mateship and the friendships and what comes out of it on the other side when you're off the green is a key critical ingredient. Would you agree with that? It's a really good, it means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to Kelvin that we can come through all those years, and the results and the highs and the lows don't matter. We're the best of mates, and that's what really counts. So it's a good story there. I want to talk about Kelvin for a minute. I think it's important that has anyone met Kelvin? He's a terrific character of the sport. If you recall back and the coach from that year was LGC Cameron walk in from the 2006 Commonwealth Games. Kelvin won the Commonwealth Games singles at Darebin in Melbourne. It was a fantastic winner, an unbelievably exciting final against Robert Wheel in the final, one of the Welsh greats. And of course, Kelvin ripped his shirt off when he won the event. Does anyone recall that? Very hairy man, very hairy. And I remember seeing Karen, his wife, sitting in the grandstand behind in total shock that he'd done that. But anyway, it turned, I think he got some hairless sponsors or something, I don't know what came of it. But he also got named, and I apologise for using this next word or this word, but they brought out a magazine not long after, and it was a bit of a blokey magazine. It wasn't Playboy or anything like that, but it was a sport magazine, Bikini Girls. But they named the 50 all-time greatest sporting wankers in Australian sports history. And Kelvin came into number 43, so for ripping your shirt off. So we now call him 43 OAM. So if you run in and just mention, how you going, 43? Very clumsy man. He's been rescued at sea. He's had his foot run over by a car. He's done all manner of things. So quite a character. But also a great story is the fact that, not a great story initially, but he woke up, as I'll say, roughly a 12-year-old one morning paralysed, basically from the waist down with a diagnosis called Guillain-Barré syndrome, so very, very serious, a form of polio, and it was a shock, just overnight change. So he had to go through years of rehabilitation. That's why he uses a stick still these days. He has to use a stick because he has what they call muscle drop, and he actually uses these days a brace around his ankle that's like I suppose a prison tag, if you look at him, and he looks a bit criminal, so you probably think he's been in jail, but a great story to see a guy that's come from such a low from Guillain-Barré syndrome to come through and be one of the greatest players we've ever seen on the green. So I think, again, a wonderful story about the sport. So, and a great guy, but yeah, very, very clumsy. It was remiss of me, there's some people in the room too. Sorry, I meant to miss, and I speak of Lowlands again. Jimmy, where's little Jimmy? Jimmy, you're here, I saw you earlier. Jimmy Reynolds. There he is, hiding down the back. Congratulations on your awards last night, and I know there's others in the room. Wasn't it great to see Jimmy win on the Gold Coast? I've lost track of time now. Was it last year, Jimmy, the World Championship in the para pairs, mate? That was awesome, and you were just dynamite. This young man is a great role model for everybody in the sport. He's done so much and he contributes so much. So it's great to see you deservingly get the award too, Jimmy, and all the other recipients, not only that got awards last night, but also that were nominated. It's a great measure of your input to the sport. So back in the early days, again, wasn't very studious, wasn't really into school. The principal called Mum up to the office and said, well, you're wasting your time here with Stephen. Really, not very good. He's not into it. So, but just before that, I went and did work experience in a bank. I was in Carina in Brisbane, did work experience in a bank, and we had a gentleman come in with a sawn-off shotgun one afternoon to make a withdrawal, and he was successful. So anyway, well, he was semi-successful. He got the cash. And as he went around, of course, these days there was no screens for security or no duress buttons or anything like that. It was every man for themselves. So basically, I'm on work experience. I've got no idea what I'm doing. Long story short, he pointed the shotgun at everyone. And when he got to me, I was sort of in the middle of nowhere, no desk. And I still recall it this day. And he said, sit. And stupid me is where? You know, where will I sit? He said, sit. So I sat. Anyway, made his withdrawal and away he went. But the silly bugger, he actually used his own car. So people snapshotted him jumping into his own car, and he actually lived in Toowoomba. So the coppers got him on the way home from Brisbane to Toowoomba. So the withdrawal wasn't that good. But it turned me off the banking industry. That's what I'm leading to. It turned me sort of off that. So not so much fun in that. So not being very studious, I got an opportunity to go to a little club called Carina in Brisbane and do a greenkeeping apprenticeship, which I did. And of course, that gave me the opportunity to play a little bit more bowls, so on and so on. Great times, a wonderful little club, and they're doing quite well now. They were almost going extinct there for a while, but they've really picked up their pace, and they've, as Lowlands have done, increased membership. They're trading well and doing really well. So, but anyway, that was the trouble with that. A little later, unfortunately, my father, who I idolised, passed away suddenly when I was about 17. So knocks you around. You're a kid, you know, you idolise your father. He introduced me to the game, and it really does knock you around. And I sort of went away from the game for a couple of years, just because I wanted no part of it. He wasn't involved, etc., etc. And I was very, very fortunate that after about 18 months, 2 years, that a couple of his peers, who were also well and truly established in the game, state reps, things like that, came and found me, and I guess reintroduced me to the sport, mentored me, kicked me up the bum when I needed it as a kid, that sort of thing, but reintroduced me to the sport, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, in all honesty. Not Dad's passing, of course, but the fact that these guys looked me up and got me back involved. So I played at Maruka. I remember playing in a Metropolitan Division 1 final as a lead, unknown, and I couldn't put a bowl down. I was so nervous trying to put a bowl down and that sort of thing, and we were successful. Fortunately, my teammates got us through that, and we had a win. But that was a start of you know, many years of pleasure and enjoyment in the game, all coming from that. I sort of set goals, and I wanted to play for Brisbane and the Metropolitan state side in those days. And as I say, there were names synonymous in the sport playing for Brisbane in those days. And like, if you've heard of Rob Perella, I'm guessing most people have heard of Rob Perella. A lovable character of the sport, no doubt about that, a little fiery Italian, and other of his peers that were just dynamite on the green. So that realisation eventually came, setting goals and getting sort of, you know, cemented in that team. And I got in once or twice and got dropped and that sort of thing. And then, but the next goal was to try and play for Queensland. And the main motivation was my father had a Queensland interstate badge with Bob Glasson on it. And I thought, I've got to get myself one of them just to emulate Dad out of, you know, memory to Dad. I've got to get a Queensland interstate badge. So trials and tribulations, and I managed to make a team or two, and again got dropped. And I know the likes of people like 𝐂𝐲𝐯, again one of the icons of the sport, took me under his wing a little bit and booted me up the bum when necessary, but also gave me some wonderful advice and things like that. And this was a tough era. This is when the old boys didn't let young guys in very easily. So it was a tough school, you know, and you had to sort of aim up, I guess, and man up a little bit. So one or two droppings and that sort of thing, but over time cemented my place in the Queensland side, which was a great honour. Got that badge, which I still hold very dearly on the mantelpiece today, alongside my father's. And then, of course, the next goal was to try and play for Australia, and I never really thought that would come true. And there was probably one game in my life that changed my career, and it was the Australian indoor singles back in, I forget even what year it was, but I played a guy a number of times called Ian Taylor, if you've ever heard of Ian Taylor, who's got a funny delivery, wonderful guy. And for a number of years there, Ian was unbeatable. He was just so good. And I'd played him about 7 times in singles and not even got close to him. And I'd played, in my estimations, very well. So, but not even close, couldn't compete with him. He's so good. Long story short, I drew him in the first round. I qualified for the Australian indoor singles. Who do I strike? Bloody Ian Taylor. Oh no, here we go again, you know. So I sort of changed my mindset a little bit. I went and did a bit of practice and whatever else you do. But I just thought to myself, if somehow I can beat Ian Taylor by fluke or by good nature or by divine intervention or something, if I can get over him, I reckon I can win the Australian indoor singles. Anyway, I fluked him. I jayed him. I probably 5 sets and got a rub off the side ditch or something, but I fluked Ian Taylor. But that game, and I went on and won, fortunately, my first Australian indoor singles. After that, beating Perella on the way, beating my good mate Kelvin, I think, from memory, all these sort of things. But that was a realisation that, hey, Steve, you can actually compete at this level. And it's one game. I know it sounds silly, but I always doubted the fact that I could compete at that level. And it took a win over Ian Taylor to actually cement that. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. So thank you, Ian, and no malice meant. And we finished up again being great mates and touring and doing a lot of things together and playing with and against each other a lot. But that was the one realisation that we could do it. And of course, the rest goes on. So managed over time to cement myself in the Australian team. Wonderful times. My first game was with the legendary Rex Johnston in New Zealand. Again, you play with Rex. If you don't throw ditch to ditch, you're in massive trouble. I was leading for him, huge amount of trouble, and of course I wasn't able to achieve that always, and he soon let me know. Sometimes polite, sometimes not so polite. He was old school, he was tough, but it was great, and anyway, we had many years playing for Australia together, and they're years that I thoroughly just sit back and think, wow, I actually had that opportunity to play for Australia in the sport that I love, and it's just fantastic, so I really enjoyed it. Culminating, I suppose, in the highlight of winning the World Singles in Scotland against another good mate, Alex Marshall from Scotland in his home territory, in very difficult conditions, very trying conditions on greens that probably mirror our surrounds around our clubs here. They're pretty ordinary, to say the least. But again, it was a great thrill to stand on the podium, and I must say a very humbling moment to stand on the podium as the world champion in the Blue Ribbon event, representing your country, and not a moment where it's quite strange, but you sort of go in a bit of a bubble, I guess, and while the anthem's playing, you look back on all these times, you know, where people have helped you, and Dad introduced you to the sport, and mentors, and all these wonderful people, and you soon realise it wasn't my victory, but it was a victory for so many, my family who'd supported me, people that had, you know, given me advice, all these sort of things, and it was really great. And to come home from Scotland and be able to celebrate with some of them was tremendous. And I remember Robbie Dobbins being the coach, and Robbie really wore his heart on his sleeve, and if he didn't play well, he'd be on the sideline waving his arms and carrying on. And we had a meeting before the single started, and Robbie said, "What do you want out of me as coach?" And I said, "Robbie, no matter how bad it gets, no matter what rubbish I throw down, no reaction. Just don't react." Anyway, to his credit, for a week long, he suffered, he endured, he put up with some terrible bowls, don't get me wrong, but he never flinched. And I reckon that was one of the catalysts for that victory as well, because Robbie was able to maintain some sort of, some sense of responsibility around that, some sort of sanity around it, which helped, you know, fluid confidence in myself to get through. And it was a monumental effort by Dobbo to do that. So, but it was very good. Of course, then transitioning into coach, and as much as I have great fond memories of playing for Australia and the highs and lows of all that, that was the ultimate, to be the Australian national coach, and I know Cameron's been there before, but it was just wonderful to transition from a player where you're kind of selfish. You turn up and it's all about yourself, it's preparing yourself. It's not intentionally selfish, but that's ultimately, when I look back on it, that's how it was. So it was all about yourself, to transition your coach where it's all about everybody else. And it was a wonderful experience to go through, and we used to have the most amazing conversations about all manner of things, and you get the female athletes come up and start planning, and they'd say, Glass, I'm going to conceive on this date, I'm going to carry, I'm going to drop the baby on this date, and I'll be back playing by this date. And these are sort of conversations you'd have. You'd have family planning, you'd have financial planning, you'd have all manner of things away from the game, and we really got to know the athletes and dealt with them on a very personal note, which was fantastic. And I think that really brought the culture of the teams together. And I think one of the greatest, successes of all of the times whilst I was involved as a coach with the Australian team was not the gold medals or the silver medals or the bronze medals, all that sort of thing, but it was the inclusiveness of the squads and bringing all these wonderful people together, whether they were male or female, whether they were all abilities, whether they were juniors, whether they were over 60s, and have them gel in a united front, which was awesome. And it wasn't easy, and I'm sure if you go back to your clubland, you can think about the situations even through penance. I mean, we're sort of, penance is a glorious time, isn't it? Isn't it? Yes, yeah. Who's a selector? Here, hands up, who's a selector? Stand up, those are club selectors, please, stand up. I'm not out to embarrass you, stand up. Please, stand up. You bloody idiots. Really. Why would you do it to yourselves? You crazy bastards, really. So, yeah. So that's got to be the worst job, seriously. Like, you can be president and secretary, they're busy, yes, but a club selector. But it is a fun time, there's no doubt about that. But and one of your roles is to try and bring all your teams together and trying to get them to look in the mirror and have some honesty about their performances, all this sort of thing. So I wish you well in your endeavours. It's a great challenge, but if you can succeed somehow, never going to be perfect. It's never, ever going to be perfect, I can assure you, but you've got to keep striving to get better and better, bring these people together, different backgrounds, different roles in the community, different jobs, different family environments, all these things that come together. And I think that's one of the great things about the sport, and one thing I've enjoyed the most is the fact that you learn from so many people. We had a gentleman at our club who passed away at 104 years of age. He lost his wife some 35 years ago, never had kids, and we used to bring him over for Christmas lunch, and he would talk about phar laps and aeroplanes and telephones and all these sort of things that occurred in his lifespan of 104 years. And all he kept saying was that he wanted to go and see his wife. He's had enough. His body was breaking down. His mind was sharp as a tack. But it was a great story that the things he could learn off these people that we'd never experienced, And that's, again, the wonderful thing about sport is just to sit down, talk to people and listen to them and hear their stories. Stories are great, and I always love hearing someone's story and where they've come from and where they're going. It's tremendous, so I always encourage you to share that. Australian coach, it was amazing. I used to stand there and pinch myself. I'd look around and we've got people like Murphy, Sheriff, Wilson, Van Eldick, all these, Cottrell, the list goes on. Reynolds, he's hiding again. Jimmy, are you hiding? Reynolds, all these amazing people. And then you'd look around the staff and you have people like Gary Willis and Mark McMahons and these tremendous staff and names that you wouldn't even know of that do so much work behind the scenes. And I'd literally stand there and pinch myself. I thought, what am I doing here? This is unbelievable that you can be involved in such an environment with such amazing people. And it was just the best times of my life. So, as I say, the main, I guess, achievement was bringing those groups together and having that inclusiveness and getting people to work together was wonderful. So, for me now, it's more about, I guess you could call it the corporate world, if you want to call it that. I'm a dodgy insurance broker with BCIB. I'm loving it. It's a great challenge, like everything else, and I'm sure from an administration point of view, the corporate governance of everything these days, running your clubs, there's Olga and all these sort of associations that you have to deal with, the paperwork, the work that goes on behind the scenes that nobody even knows about, and insurance is very much the same now. So it's a great challenge, and I love a challenge, so it's really good to be involved, and most of all, get to visit hundreds upon hundreds of clubs throughout Australia each year, from the magnificent, which Wenty Leagues most certainly is, it's 5-star world-class venue, to the smallest of little clubs, little country clubs out in the middle of nowhere. They might have one green they're battling, but gee, they make you feel welcome as soon as you walk in, and they're wonderful people. We've got that common factor in tune with one another. We've got the same objectives. They all want to go better. They all want to make sure that their existence is prolonged, etc., etc. So it's wonderful to be out there, and I'm very privileged to still be involved in the sport like that. Of course, the game has changed. It's changed from my old Henselite black bowls in the day to bowls like this, as an example, and it's been a great change. It's changed from Karen Murphy, tells a great story of when she was, a late teenager, early 20s, and she'd be decked out in the white skirt, which would get measured when she turned up to play, the big hat, the badges, all this sort of thing. And Karen refused. If she knew she had to, and she lives down near Wollongong, if she had to go to Sydney to play the next day, she'd go and get petrol the day before in a civvies, so she wouldn't have to get out of the car in a bowls gear to get petrol, because she was too embarrassed by the uniform. So fortunately, we've come beyond those days, which is great. And bowls is kind of fashionable now. I know, particularly in the ladies' arena, if I can call it that, some of the outfits are just amazing. They're really trendy and fashionable and that sort of thing. And it's great to see for the sport that we've modernised in that respect, rather than the old sort of the old white bowls days. But so that's a really good story. We've changed from 25 ends in some cases anyway. Some states are still playing, but 25 ends in pennant bowls in fours with an afternoon tea break with a cucumber sandwich, to BPL style formats where it's short, it's sharp. It's that opportunity for people, particularly in the workforce, where we have a lot of people working 2 jobs these days, to be able to embrace the game and have a taste of it. Now, whether or not they stay, that's up to our individual clubs to sort of, I guess, woo them into it in their own demographic. And I think that's one of the vital key elements of our recruitment of members these days, only my personal opinion, in the fact that we can't have a one-size-fits-all model, I don't believe. And BPL is a great introduction to the sport. It's great fun and that sort of thing, and yes, it definitely works. But I think looking at our own clubs, without trying to preach, and I don't mean to be like that we need to also understand our own demographic, where we live, what works for our local community. It could be, I play at the Mount Lewis Bowling Club in the Bankstown region, example. So it's very much a Lebanese area. So the Lebanese aren't that much in the bowl, so we have to find ways to entice them or to attract members to our club. So we have to diversify. You've heard all this before, but it's a really great challenge to break that down and try and make it specific for your own demographic. So we can use holistic programs like BPL and that sort of thing, but then break it down, and we do need to diversify. There's no doubt about that. And I was talking to someone earlier just saying that, our club is an example. I'm not rubbishing them, but we had some young ladies join. When I say young ladies, they're in their 30s and 40s, keen as mustard. And our main ladies committee didn't want to change the setup to make them be able to play midweek, or weekends rather. They wanted to sort of maintain this midweek club championship situation. So the board of Mount Lewis fund the ladies club and gave them a directive to say, listen, you're going to have to get a little bit more modern, get a little bit more modernised with your thinking, and play some club championships on the weekend. The ladies club refused to do that. The board cut the funding from the ladies club, which we later re-established, because the ladies eventually learnt that they do have to actually play on weekends, but the damage was done, and the ladies that joined, the young ladies, missed the opportunity. They went elsewhere because they knew they weren't welcomed by, and it's not a bad comment about the ladies, please don't take it that way, but it happens in clubs, and men are just as bad. So let's get these people involved. Let's make it an attractive sport. I think coaches need to be salespeople, so those people that you have, like Greg from Lowlands, make these people salespeople. They've got to get these people in and really sell the sport and not be regimental. I know when I first started, there was a coaching manual about yay thick, and you had to put a jack down, I think, for, Cameron, you might remember, 5 lessons or something, I think, to roll a jack. Imagine going to a tennis lesson and doing the ball toss for 5 hours, 5 lessons. Like, I want to hit the ball, this sort of thing. So the sport has progressed from those days of a coaching manual that thick to being a lot more modernised, but I think diversification is really, really important. So that's kind of a little bit of background about me. I know we've got some great speakers to talk about where we're going in the sport. I just want to show you, and I've plagiarised this a little bit from Bowls Australia. Thank you, Aidan Davis, for this. So I'll just, hopefully, and then we'll go from here. There should be some volume, I think. And no, I told you I'll bugger it up. Try again. Press play. Technology. Oh, look. We don't want to see him. We really don't want to see. I'll let you.
Stalking it. She's got it. The game is over. The jack. She's got 3 out of it. Oh, she may even have 4. She saw it. She's got 4. And she's won it. What an outstanding finish to this match.
Tournament. Out of the hand from Ali Forsyth, playing with weight, looking to take out the Adelaide Bowl. He's hit the tap, and New Zealand have snatched the APL final away. And Ali Forsyth, with ice running through his veins.
And they will go 4 up.
Massive bowl. This could be match as such.
If he can touch the jacket in, she almost brings the 5th one in.
Well, he's chasing.
He's in the area.
He is close. He is close. Has he got the running? Has he got the running?
He might have made 5.
Absolutely brilliant bowling from Ben Twist. The 4 of the best bowls you'll ever see.
Thanks. Thanks to Aidan for a bit of footage there too, Matthew, and thanks for our controllers down the back for saving me. Good job. So I guess this is only just to plant the seed about the conversation you're going to have later in the day as well. It's the age-old one, isn't it? How do we diversify? What do we do? I certainly haven't got all the answers, and I doubt if anyone in the room has all the answers. But it's really important to look in your own back pocket, I guess, in your own demographic, try and diversify, get these other revenues other streams of revenue coming into your club, because bowls alone isn't going to see the survival of our clubs in most cases. So, that's a challenge for us all, and to have a good hard look at it. I'm sure there's going to be some great ideas come out throughout the day. I just want to, is there any questions anyone might have from this morning? Yes, sir. I honestly can't recall, to be honest, and I've met up with David, and unfortunately David's passed on now, but met up with him over the years. But I think just sitting there and listening to him talk bowls was enough for me. He's this god of a person speaking to little old Steve at the age of 13 or something, and I think I just listened to every word he said and took it all on board. But I think generally from David it would have been your commitment to the sport, the etiquette, that sort of thing. He was a big believer in all of that, and how he's gone about what he did to achieve so much in the sport. So it was a moment I'll cherish, forever, really. So yeah, thank you. Yes. Just one, mate. Lucky story. One you didn't finish for us. Uh-oh. Oh, didn't I mention that? I did. That was, and I still bring it up to this day. Like that's. I was 15, so that's about 15 years ago, I guess. So yeah, I still bring it up to this day and rub it in. But look, we've probably played each other 100 times in singles over the years, and I reckon he's going to say 51-49 to him. I'm going to say 51-49 to me. So we'll let the history records just show that. But a wonderful character of the sport and really good guy. So yeah. Look, you've done very well. You're all awake. You've done very well. Thank you. So, yep. I wish you well. Thanks again, Tim, for the opportunity this morning, and Dillis. Billy, have a great rest of the day. I know you've got some courses and some subjects inside and outside. I'm sure they'll be hugely beneficial. Get out there. I hope you leave today really super motivated, or even more motivated than what you ever are. Whether it's at a state-based or national-based level, or your own demographic in your own community. These are important venues that we put up for our community, and we want to see it prosper as well. So all the very best, and good bowling as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Steve. What an awesome way just to set the context for the day. So brilliant, and just so nice to hear a bit about Steve's personal and professional journey, both on and off the green too. So you said you like to hear personal stories and insights, and I've learned a lot about you today as well, Steve, and you're a great asset for our sport. So thank you again. Can we please hear it again for Steve Glasson? Thanks. Excellent. So that concludes this session now. We're going to break briefly just for 10 minutes for a very quick morning tea. So we'll need everyone just to leave the room, because we're going to have to reset this and put a wall up in the middle. So I invite everybody to head out for coffee, tea and a bite to eat, and we'll reconvene in about 10 minutes' time. So thank you very much.